There is an old Portuguese saying, "Those who plant cork oaks are thinking about their grandchildren." This week, we witnessed something very special. For the first time since buying this land, we watched cork being harvested from trees planted here almost 30 years ago. But to understand why this moment was so important, we need to go back to the day we bought this property. Much of the cork oak forest on our land was planted in 1998 as part of a forestry project supported by the Portuguese government. According to local people who know this land well, only one cleaning operation was carried out after the trees were planted. After that, the project was largely abandoned. Over the years, some trees grew strong and healthy, others became weak, some became diseased. And many eventually died. Our goal was not to change the character of the forest, but simply to help it recover its natural balance. When we bought the land in 2023, we counted more than 1,100 cork oaks, a total of 1,137 trees. One of the most striking features of our land is the series of terraces built along the slopes. These terraces help retain rainwater and reduce soil erosion. Over time, they help preserve moisture in the ground and create better conditions for trees to grow. Although many of these cork oaks are now more than 25 years old, most had never been harvested. At the same time, there were already some mature cork oaks in production. When we bought the land, we found 24 trees marked with the number 2. These trees had last been harvested in 2022. In a cork oak forest, time moves slowly. Some decisions only produce results many years later.
Quando visitámos este terreno, percebemos que o montado tinha estado bastante tempo sem manutenção. Havia sobreiros mortos, outros doentes, enfim, tudo a precisar de grande atenção e de algum trabalho e de muita atenção. Mas também vimos que havia aqui algum potencial e foi assim que decidimos que iríamos tentar recuperar o montado, diversificando e tentando que ele voltasse a ser saudável.
One of our first priorities was to restore the cork oak forest. We began by identifying the dead trees. We then applied to the Portuguese Forestry Authority, ICNF, for permission to remove them. Eventually, we received authorization to cut 104 dead cork oaks and 4 dead holm oaks. Even after removing more than 100 trees, the landscape hardly seemed to change. Before that, we had already received permission to prune the younger cork oaks. Cork oaks are protected trees, and their management follows very specific rules. One of those rules requires a minimum interval of 2 years between pruning and cork harvesting. The same interval must also be respected after harvesting before pruning can take place again. For that reason, the mature trees harvested in 2022 could not be pruned at that time. However, they will still require maintenance in the future. Their next pruning will need to take place before 2029, respecting the legal interval before the next harvest. The work generated a large amount of firewood. It also produced some cork. This cork did not come from harvesting. Instead, it came for cleaning operations carried out on pruned and felled trees. Because it consisted mainly of small pieces with little industrial value, it was sold for a relatively low price.
Em 2024, contámos mais de uma centena de sobreiros mortos. E mesmo assim, depois de os cortarmos, a paisagem não mudou. Percebemos aqui que realmente a dimensão do montado era enorme. E percebemos também que isto iria ser um processo que iria demorar muito tempo até ficar um montado bonito e saudável novamente.
Of course, by Alentejo standards, our Cork oak forest is relatively small. But for us, arriving here from a completely different way of life, looking after more than 1,100 cork oaks, felt like an enormous responsibility. And it still does. Cork harvesting is one of the most important seasonal activities in this part of Portugal. During the harvest season, many workers temporarily leave other jobs, agriculture, construction, forestry. For a few months every year, they dedicate themselves almost exclusively to cork harvesting. It is highly specialized work, physical demanding, and generally better paid than many other rural activities in the region. Teams often work from sunrise to sunset, 7 days a week, as long as conditions allow. This year, however, the season started later than usual. The winter was exceptionally wet. After a very rainy winter, cork contains too much moisture. Harvesting must wait until conditions are right. For that reason, many harvesting teams in the region only began working in June. This year, many of the trees planted in 1998 finally reached the size required for their first harvest. In Portugal, this first harvest is known as desbóia. Cork oaks begin producing cork much earlier than this. However, the first harvest can only take place once the trunk reaches the legally required circumference. Until then, the cork must remain on the tree. The cork obtained during this first harvest is known as virgin cork. Its commercial value is relatively low, but it marks the beginning of the tree's productive life. This year, 49 trees on our land were marked with number 6 after being harvested. Watching the harvesters work was fascinating. Removing large sheets of cork without damaging the tree requires years of experience and great skill. One of the things that impressed us most was the color revealed beneath the bark. As soon as the cork is removed, the trunk displays a beautiful reddish-brown color. In our opinion, it is absolutely beautiful. Unfortunately, this transformation only lasts a few months. Gradually, the trunk darkens once again. You may have noticed the numbers painted on the trunks. These numbers do not identify individual trees. Instead, they indicate the last digit of the year in which the cork was harvested. A tree marked with the number 2 was harvested in 2022. A tree marked with the number 6 was harvested in 2026. When we bought the land, we counted 24 trees marked with number 2. This year, we counted 49 trees marked with the number 6. By law, cork can only be harvested every 9 years. This means that the trees marked with a 2 can only be harvested again in 2031. By then, many more of our younger cork oaks may also be ready for their own desbóia. During this year's harvest, we also discovered that several cork oaks are showing signs of disease. Some could not even be harvested. We now need specialist advice to understand which trees can recover and which may eventually need to be removed. Managing a cork oak forest is a long-term commitment. The decisions we make today may only show their full results many years from now. Perhaps that is why cork oaks are so closely linked to the idea of legacy and continuity between generations.
Da cortiça, o que sabíamos, para além da utilização dos produtos derivados da cortiça, o que sabíamos foi numa visita ao Museu da Cortiça, em Silves, na fábrica de vinho inglês. Muito pouca coisa, nunca tínhamos assistido a uma tiragem de cortiça.
Although we had visited the Cork Museum in Silves some years earlier, seeing cork being harvested in real life was something completely different. It gave us a whole new appreciation of the skill, experience, and tradition behind this remarkable material.
Os sobreiros também nos ensinaram outra coisa importante, é que as coisas boas da vida levam tempo. Esperamos que tenham gostado desta experiência e de acompanhar esta tradição tão portuguesa.
Thank you very much for joining us. We hope to see you again in the next chapters of this adventure. Until then, we wish you all the very best. A warm greeting from Portugal. See you soon.